Hey everybody, Worst Pogue here, and today I'm going to be going over taking care of your feet using this as mock-up, and then taking care of your boots. So we're going to start with feet. They're a little bit more important, even though boots would make more sense to go first. So I got a few products here today. I got friction defense, just spray foot powder, a athlete's foot corrective, O'Keefe's, I think it's O'Keefe's, healthy feet, and then deodorant. Obviously a little bit confusing potentially. So, and excuse the get up. I was dry firing and then remembered I needed to refilm. So let's go over healthy feet first. Pretty much at the end of a day hiking and stuff, you want to rehydrate your feet. It makes your feet a little bit more durable and then comfortable. Just keeps your skin healthy and strong. Helps prevent blisters and stuff. So this is a preventative measure, but you should have it anyways. Pretty much put it all over your feet when you go to bed, and you'll be pretty solid 99% of the time. Then you have this, which is another preventative measure, but when you put on a sock. And so I like to spray my sock inside out. I'll lay it down and go ankle to toe, stopping at the toe, and then flip it over, go ankle to toe, stopping at the toe, because that allows extra friction, and then flip it inside out and slide my feet into it, or I'll just put my toe on it and then roll it over my foot. Either way works. Then you have Gold Bond friction defense. This is pretty much when you do start getting or start having issues with blisters and stuff and hot spots. Generally you'll go into your hike and a mile and a half in, 2 miles in, you'll take a little pause and take off your boots, check out your feet, kind of make mental notes of where you're getting your friction spots are in your feet, and you put this on it and you're pretty much good. With a well-fitting boot, you shouldn't have pretty much any need for this. I've had this for a while now and it's pretty much still full, because I make sure my boots fit my feet beforehand. Now, why do I have essentially antifungal spray for your feet and athlete's foot gear? Well, when you step into a dirty water source and it gets into your boots and into your socks and it stays on your feet just a little bit, even if you take your socks off and shoes off and then dry them out and stuff on the spot, you still have risk of getting tiny skin infections, skin irritations, just little fungi and stuff going on with your feet. So this is a good preventative measure. Essentially, you shouldn't really spray it when you're actively using it, just because it's icy hot. It's not going to be comfortable while hiking. But at the end of the day, I would put a heavy dosage of this onto my feet if I got my feet wet that day, or my boots are inherently nasty, or socks are inherently nasty from me wearing them for multiple days. If they're merino wool and I'm out for a month-long type trek or something, and the socks have been used for a week each, but not a week straight. You should never wear your socks a day after a day after day. You should replace your socks every day and then let them air out, let them chill, and then essentially re-sanitize themselves, I guess. You can also use the little bit of the sun when they're inside out, and it works. You can hang them off your back. Works pretty well. And then that's what you'd be using this for. Now, I brought deodorant over here. I don't actually use it, but if you don't have aloe, this can kind of work. Generally, this is not good. you can have, depending on your skin, you can have like reactions with the scents inside the deodorants. Does it reduce friction? Yes. Is it the best for it? No, because it also stops sweating. And unless you're in a cold environment, you should allow your feet to sweat, because otherwise you end up with essentially uncomfortable and clogged pores on your feet, and then you have a myriad of other issues, because now you have potential causing of blistering just due to essentially having that moisture trapped inside for too long of a period, especially the 48-hour ones, or the extended 72-hour use ones, and longer. Those will cause issues. I do not recommend those whatsoever, but in a pinch, it will work. But I wouldn't put it all over your feet. Now, when it comes to your foot, you want to like pay attention to where you're getting hot spots. Generally, this is on your shoe, or the sole of the shoe, and your foot's going to be in here. You see a lot of hot spots, usually right along here on the sides in this back area where the shoe's starting to grab, especially if your shoes aren't quite tight enough or they're broken in too much and you can't tighten them anymore. You can get a little bit of friction here. You can also get a little bit of friction right here on this back spine area of your heel. And that's when your heel isn't tight enough to get your, isn't tightly held enough in the boot. And you start getting the action of the sole and the shoe separating. Usually when you do the whole stepping, you'll have the separation, which is not good. So you want to make sure your shoe actually grips around here. That's most of the areas. Some people, depending on their arches, will get them on like the side of your foot. That's like right along here. Little like this area or this area. That's a lot less common. I haven't seen it. If your toe box is too tight, you do get toe blisters. Some people, due to shoes and how they've grown up, their toes are essentially grown in a way that their bones push the toes together, and you can actually get blisters in between your toes and on the bottom of your toes if you have that issue. Pretty much what I do to prevent that, just on a few of my more fucked up toes from my shattered foot, is I don't know where I put it, but I take I take this and I'll just dab a little bit on those specific toes in the specific spots to get them to chill out on me. So hopefully that stuff helps you. If not, sorry, man. You got some pretty unique issues. Now into foot care. You have a good few products. This is just essentially a water repellent from Boot Barn. Nothing super fancy. I use it on like my work boots just because it was easy. And I used to buy like the $24 jeans from there because cheap jeans, and they're Wrangler work jeans, so works. And then you have this big container of Neat's foot oil, and then you have like hard conditioners, and mink oil, and then a liquid conditioner. Now let's go over these products. And kind of talk about them a little bit. So you have these basic leather conditioners, right? Alright, so you have the basic leather conditioner. That's just like a regular off the shelf. Probably someone makes it for them. made by Boot Barnes in Irvine, California. Irvine, California, whatever. It's not bad water repellent. It's something you do after the treatment of your boots and stuff. Then you have this regular leather conditioner. I found that this doesn't really darken my leather on the boots, which is why I use it on my Marine Corps boots, but I use it sparingly. I usually water it down even a little bit. I usually use like untreated water or lightly treated water. And what I do is I take a bowl, I'll fill it up with tap water, and then I'll go and set it in the sun. And like a day and a half or 2 days later, usually the contents of the water will be so low that it's not really going to be drinkable anymore, and it's not going to be as harmful. It's still going to not have anything in it, really, especially if you set it in the sun. Indoors, specifically indoors. And then I take some of that and water this down, and that keeps the coloring of the boots from darkening. Then afterwards, I go with like a really rough bristled brush and then rough the boot back up. So that way the Marine Corps doesn't throw a fit about me taking care of my footwear. Roughing the boot back up is not good for the leather, but because it takes it apart essentially and will flake off. You'll see leather flakes come off of it, but that's the only way with these rough leather boots. They did away with the whole like shining boot stuff, and that's good and all, but now you can't have smooth toed boots. You have to have rough leather, so whatever. You also have this, which is a conditioning like paste. It also waterproofs the boots a little bit. Same thing with this conditioner, but not quite as much, or really much at all. Like you won't see water bead off of it, but it'll take a good few seconds extra to absorb. This will actually pretty actively repel water. And this is just kiwi conditioning oil. It's like a mink oil of sorts, but it's a proprietary mix of different stuff. It doesn't say what all. It does somewhat darken the boot. And I only put this on if I'm going to be in a wet environment like a jungle or swampy area or a cold area. But if I'm in a cold area, this is going to be a base. This is not going to be the outer layer. And the outer layer is actually going to be the mink oil, and it's going to be really heavy on. This base, done lightly enough, is going to protect the coloring of the Marine Corps boots from the mink oil, which will discolor them pretty decently in my experience. But what I do is I put this on sparingly, and then I take a little bit of heat, like a hair dryer or a heat gun on like the lowest setting. Then I warm it up and like just make sure it soaks in a little bit. Then I put an extra coat that I leave dry on there, and then I put this on, and this will leave like a white residue of sorts on the boot. So it'll leave a good overcoating. Now, if you don't have Marine Corps boots and you're just looking to take care of like regular boots, like my regular hiking boots, this is the best stuff. This is why I have such a large container of it. I'm already like most of the way gone. So Neesfoot oil is probably the most mineral rich oil you can probably get, at least to my knowledge. It darkens the shit out of your leather, but your leather physically will hold together stronger and still stretch and be flexible and stuff. It makes it also smoother and more comfortable to wear. It softens it up without making it weak, and it actually feels like it almost makes the leather stronger and more resistant to ripping, tearing, and even like flexing and having those essentially like wear markers almost. This is what I put on my boots as a preparatory before I put mink oil or conditioning oil on the boots themselves. So you can get leather cleaner, like these specifically. I would put leather cleaner on before I treated them, but I don't care because I'm never going to wear them really. And then I would condition them lightly with this, be fine. And then I'd come over with the mink oil and get a nice good rub on. I'd come over with the Neesfoot oil and then get a nice good rub in with that, as well as this, to give like a good overall conditioning. Now, I don't know the proprietary blends between the two. They both condition the leather This one seems to do a little bit more for the leather's like long-term health, or in the moment health, I mean. And this one does more long-term. So I essentially will run these two either order. I generally always like fuck up the order or forget it, but I try to do this first and then I go with the nest foot oil. But I haven't really noticed much of a difference when I do the nest foot oil than a little bit of this first or second. But I use less of this than nest foot. I use a lot of this shit because it is so good. But I always top it off. I have, I think, 2 containers of these left out of a 4-pack. And this, the spread mousse, I bought this on a whim, I think, on Amazon. And it does pretty solid. It's made in the USA, and I have not had any like water permeations as long as I just kept it on and kept it applied. Because it does wear off when you're like trekking through snow and shit. But it does pretty solid. It's actually waterproofed. My one boots that I showed you guys before, this is what's waterproofed it, and it does a really good job. It also does nourish the oil or the leather a little bit, which is good. But that is what darkens it. That's why I use this kiwi stuff first. PXs sell this stuff, so I think that's why they sell it, is because it doesn't quite darken it, but or darken the military leather. But yeah, so that's usually what I go, and then I usually do it with a rag. So for the military boots, I'll start with this leather conditioner. I'll water it down, have water on the rag. I'll put the leather conditioner on the rag, and I just use my fingers on the leather conditioner part, and I'll just go and rub in the same circles every time. I generally like to go counterclockwise just because I use my right hand with it. And I just go over the whole boot, all the leather, in that same direction, no matter which way like the boot's facing. And then that way it goes. I do usually put like a few ounces on my fingers when I do the front of the boot, and then a few ounces on my fingers when I do the back of the boot. And then the more leather, the more I'll like use. Like if it's a full leather boot, it's a high ankle, I'll usually use four little bits, like 2 ounces or whatever. So 8 ounces total on the boot, along with the water. Sometimes a little less, but it all depends on the boot. Because sometimes when you have the leather on the inside, I like to roll over with that as well, just to make sure no leather is left like unconditioned, unprotected. Then with the mink oil or the knee foot oil, or on Marine Corps boots, I don't use that. I'll just go over with this conditioning oil and rub a little bit in, use a little bit of heat gun, then go back and rough up the leather, and then call it a day. With the non-military boots, I'll go and use this before the conditioning oil. And for this, I essentially pretty heavily soak the boots. I don't pour it onto the boots, but I'll put it onto a rag very heavily, and then I'll essentially like press the rag into the leather, try to get a little bit of transfer, or I'll pour a little drop, try to rub it in real quickly, pour a little drop, try to rub it in real quickly, because the leather absorbs this stuff pretty quickly. So if you have like droplets of stuff on the leather and you leave it too long, it will create like a deeper dark spot there. So you have to be careful doing that method. That's why I like rubbing on the rag and then taking the rag as a whole and like pressing it into the boot. Then after that, for the non-military boots, I'll go over with the conditioning oil or mink oil or both, depending on the environment. So hopefully that helps you guys with your whole like boots and boot care. And if it doesn't, then I don't know what to tell you at this point. Like it should help you guys. So also, when you go over your footwear, pay attention to like when you have stuff coming unglued, and don't be afraid to glue it back down. This has been glued down before, but that way you make sure you don't have your footwear wear out prematurely. So have super glue that you have designated for things, because not all super glue works on everything. You need to have super glue that works with plastic, or super glue that works with metal, not really wood, but just generic super glues that work with specific items. Because if you have like a leather and plastic one, it's probably going to be more docile and not want to hold things as well. But if you have one that's like meant for metal stuff, it's going to fuck up plastic, and it's going to fuck up the leather, so it's not going to hold, because it's going to melt away what it holds on to. So you just got to pay attention to like stuff like that. Also, stop breathing the super glue fumes in, like when that shit's curing. I know I've seen a few fucking Marines smell that shit. I'm like, that shit's toxic, you idiots. So whatever. Yeah, I hope that helped you guys, and see you in the next video, which is going to be pants and belt line fitment, like knee pads and shit. So, yep.